I have enough money to go out and purchase, say, $5,000 worth of inventory. But I had a thing in my head where I said, look, let's get an item, sell it, take the profit and reinvest and flip. So I just continually kept doing that while I was Ubering. So that's the other thing. That's a way to do it, is if you're working full-time, you start out part-time and just keep reinvesting that money to build. I'm telling you, you can really do this on nothing.
Mike Wilson started reselling on eBay and Amazon part-time after retirement. In 3 years, he's grown that side gig into a full-time business that grossed $300,000 in 2021. I'm your host, Alex Freeman, and in this podcast episode, I'm getting Mike's advice about how to start selling on eBay. He'll share where he gets his inventory, how he prepares and prices it to sell, and what items have the most profit potential. He'll also talk about how to set up an eBay store and what other tools and sites he uses to market and manage his business. Let's go talk to Mike. Mike, thanks for joining us on the show.
Oh, thank you, Alex. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Let's start with your background. When did you start your reselling business and what was your career before?
I'll start with my career before. Before I was a furniture store owner. I was a retail furniture store owner for 30 years. And basically retail was dying and I basically said, I don't need to do it anymore. So I kind of retired at an early age at about 55 years old. And then I started to do some Ubering because my friend said, hey, you're going to kill some time, do some Ubering. And I started to do Ubering. And caught on to some YouTube videos about this reselling. And I thought to myself, you know what? I'm driving around. I can stop at thrift stores and basically, start looking at thrift stores to find some stuff. And pretty much that's how it started. It just started with a curiosity and just moved on from there. And now I'm 4 years into my reselling journey.
Wow. Looking back at that first full year in business, what were your revenue numbers that year? And how does that compare to today and what your expectations are for 2022?
My first year revenue actually I started in April, so it was a short year, but I did 70,000 in gross sales that first year, and it has grown ever since. Last year I did over 300,000. This year I'm going to touch out at about 350,000 in gross sales, just reselling. So my future numbers down the road, I don't know. I'm a one-man operation. I'm trying to inspire people that, hey, if you're just doing this on your own, it can be done. You can make some good money just by yourself.
You're obviously finding great products to sell with some of those revenue numbers, but are there certain types of products that are reliably profitable? And what are the best products to sell on eBay? And what are those profit margins look like typically?
I'll tell you what, it's anything and everything. I was looking at this and I'm saying to myself, what is it? It is almost anything you can find, period, from sealed VHS tapes to clothing to electronics, albums. I mean, that's the great thing about reselling is its ability for you to find almost anything and make great money. I have gotten items for free and flipped them for hundreds of dollars. I've paid $1. I've paid 40. So it's just out there everywhere. You use your life experiences to try to figure out what something's worth. You say, oh, I've seen that. I know that's something great. So it's the whole gamut. That's the great thing about reselling.
I think when a lot of people start thinking about reselling, that sort of naturally leads them to the show Storage Wars on TV, which I'm sure a lot of listeners are familiar with. You've even bought a storage locker from one of the show members. Are those a smart way to get inventory as a reseller? And what are some of the advantages and risks of going that route?
Yeah, I recently just bought my first storage locker off of Dave Hester. Everybody who's watched Storage Wars knows Dave Hester, I think. He's the guy that goes, yup. And I got my first storage locker. I paid $50 at an auction. And it was an experiment. And it is not for everybody. If you're just starting out, I would say probably not, unless you've got a lot of space. The storage locker purchasing program or that, whatever you're bidding on, can be a little bit tricky. But there is value in these. You have to have the space. You have to have a lot of ability to sell this stuff in various areas like flea markets, garage sales, that kind of stuff. And you've got to be able to dispose of a lot of garbage. The show shows you, if you've watched Storage, where you see a lot of the glamour side of it and you don't see all that other stuff behind the scenes that has to go. So if you're starting out with reselling, I would say, no, maybe dabble a little bit down the road. It took me 3 years to finally put my feet in the water on a storage locker. But there is good money in it.
So beyond that storage locker, where are some great places to find items to resell, and maybe some of them that people overlook or don't know about?
Well, the typical stuff is garage sales, flea markets, the thrift stores. But the one that's your typical kind of place you're going to find it. Some places that people forget are relatives. Somebody who is a relative may have some stuff that they're trying to get rid of, and you could work with them to resell it, that kind of thing. But the number one area that people, I think, overlook is that networking. It's in everything in our life. We have friends, we have relatives, like I just talked about, but we have other resellers who do not tap into what you like. So you need to, kind of work with that whole community itself, build that network, and that network will then come to you. I've even bought stuff on vacation from picker friends who have said, Mike, I know you like this stuff. I know you're on vacation. Do you want it? And I said, yes. And then when I get back from vacation, I purchase it. So that's a very powerful way to make some money reselling.
And what are the startup costs involved? Like, how much did it cost you to get Golden State Picker up and running? Like, are there store setups? Is there a budget that someone should have for initial inventory? What does that look like?
This is my advice if you're first starting out, is to look within your own house. Your house has a lot of stuff that you've purchased over the years. And that stuff, if you're not using it, you have a garage sale, why not try and put it up on eBay and try and sell it that way? So I can tell you, I went in when I was doing my Ubering, and I have enough money to go out and purchase, say, $5,000 worth of inventory. But I had a thing in my head where I said, look, let's get an item, sell it, take the profit, and reinvest and flip. So I just continually kept doing that while I was Ubering. So that's the other thing. That's a way to do it, is if you're working full-time, is start out part-time and just keep reinvesting that money to build. I'm telling you, you can really do this on nothing. But if you really had to, maybe $1,000, try to, cobble together, some inventory. But it's a slow process, especially when you're starting out. Just build that inventory and you'll be off and running.
Quick promo for our listeners here. For those who'd rather buy a reselling business that is up and running, you can find an e-commerce business along with many other industries in the Upflip listings. Just head to upflip.com to check out what is available. Mike, can you talk us through the steps of setting up an eBay store? And are there any key steps or details that new sellers often miss or do wrong?
The law has changed. It started this year. So a lot of people are afraid to open a business because they think they're going to have to pay a ton of taxes. So what's happened now is the law changed. Anything over $600 sold on a platform like eBay, even Venmo and these other sites are going to require you to have a 1099. So you're going to need a social security. You've got to have a social security number to first and foremost. You need your address. It is really basic. You're obviously those kind of things to set it up. Where people make most of their mistakes are at the beginning stages when they don't have anything that they've sold. You need to build up some feedback. You need to build up some sales. So you're going to start out slow. You don't want to just pop in and start throwing up very high-end items, because there's a lot of scams out there from people who are trying to scam you. They're trying to get you off of the eBay platform. So when you're first setting yourself up, you have to remember that the basics of setting yourself up is easy. The hard part is getting to that, let's say, first 100 feedback. So you might want to buy some items yourself online, and try to get some feedback so that you're being trusted out there. And then the scammers, like for example, I have over 3,000 feedback. So the scammers know, hey, when they see 3,000 feedback, they're not going to bother you. So you've got to continually build your store, try to avoid the scams. And avoid, this next thing is very important. Avoid selling fakes, products that are blocked, VERO'd. We call those verified rights, intelligence property. You've got to be very careful, because some companies do not want their products sold on eBay because of fakes. That will get you in trouble the quickest.
What would you describe as the biggest challenge of becoming an eBay seller? And why is that a challenge? And what can someone do to either overcome or avoid that issue when they get started?
All right, there's a slogan that I use, and it's don't buy just to buy. Most people get into a position of not knowing the value of the item that they're buying. You must really know exactly what that value is, what the sell-through rate of that particular item is. We can't put stuff up that's not going to sell. So the number one thing you need to familiarize yourself with is the eBay app itself. It is very basic. The eBay app will let you look at sold and completed sales. That's all that matters. You do not want to pay attention to what somebody is asking for the item. You want to know what the item is selling for and how many are selling through. What's the sell-through rate? And if you've got a really good sell-through rate, then you're set. Then you can price accordingly to the solds, not the ask. If your price is too high, it's just not going to sell. So really, it's basically knowing what you have and will it sell.
What makes your business unique or different from other eBay sellers, and how has that helped you grow?
My eBay business is a little bit different. I'm diversified. I think that when you look at a lot of people, some people just get too focused in one area and then they get trapped. I have a very big diversification of product that enables me to grow rapidly. So I can dabble a little bit in clothing, a little bit in electronics. And that's how you have to be. You know, you hear a lot of times about older people, you guys all know everything. Well, it's not that we know everything. I'm 60 years old. I just have a life experience knowledge. So I kind of know a little bit about everything so I can kind of adjust. And that's what I do. I sell, espresso machines, stereos, you just name it, I sell it. So I think that the more diversified you are, the faster you will grow.
You mentioned earlier that there are some brands or items that can't be resold on eBay. Could you talk a little bit more about that, as well as things that maybe just don't seem to sell well in general, even if they're allowed on the platforms?
One of the big areas is medical equipment, anything that requires a prescription. Believe it or not, equipment does require prescriptions like insulin machines, CPAP machines, all of that. Expired products, you cannot sell expired products. That is against the rules there. eBay has a list. When you go onto the eBay site, you can check for the Vero list, and the Vero list is deep. Don't let it scare you if you see that list. But there are a lot of manufacturers, especially in the clothing area, I will say like purses, they are looking for fakes. There is so much fake out there. So you've got to try to avoid a lot of that type stuff. As far as selling anything that doesn't sell, everything has a place to sell. If it has a comp and I can sell it, I'll sell it. But I don't really run into anything that I try to super avoid, because within each category, there is something that has value.
How do you determine that value? I mean, especially with your business being as diverse as it is, how do you know what particular item is worth and if you can resell it for a profit? Do you have any websites or knowledge sources that you use, or are you just a deeply knowledgeable human?
That's part of it. I hate this. I want to say that it's just, you have life experiences, and these life experiences, when, the society we live in is so bombarded with items, we're constantly going through the department stores and we see all this stuff. So I've had this life experience. I tell people, use your eyes and use your hands. Your eyes tell you, hey, that looks pretty nice. But once you touch something of quality, you kind of know. After a while, it just becomes routine to you. But then if you don't, the key thing is what is so great about now compared to 20 years ago, we have the cell phone. We have a computer right in front of us. We can take a picture of it using Google Lens. We can scan a barcode. We can look it up. We can look it up on Amazon. We can look it up on eBay. Using all of that knowledge, that then narrows it down. And after a while, you'll become very, very good at just knowing that that's not worth something. That's not worth something. Starting out, you'll spend a lot of time looking things up. But later on, once you build up a pretty good experience, you're just going to pass on a lot of stuff.
And where should someone be looking up the prices and the value for items? Are there any sources?
Well, some people will use WorthPoint for more expensive items, but WorthPoint, I think, is they charge about $30 a month. The bottom line, it is always the eBay app. It is so simple to use, and that is your go-to thing that you need. That's the only one you really strongly need. I don't use anything else, nothing else.
And then what if you come across, as you're sourcing items, a broken item? Is it worth it to repair it, especially in like electronics or appliances? Are there certain ones that are worth fixing up to resell? Or are there certain things that if it's broken, you should just avoid it?
Yeah, now that's another great thing about eBay and YouTube. I sell a lot of things that are just for parts. If it is broken and I can't fix it, there's somebody out there who will either take on that challenge or they need parts from that particular item to use in a unit that they have. Some of the things that are easily fixable, I will take on. Example is a turntable. Old vintage turntables sell for some really good money. The number one problem with them is the belt is broken. Very easy fix. You can buy a belt on Amazon or eBay, either one. And there's YouTube videos pretty much on every turntable. So you just go there and it'll show you. I even have videos on turntables, how to fix them. That's the number one problem there. But generally speaking, if it's a small little detail on something that is like a Limax, it's like a Halloween ceramic decoration and a little tree is broken off, maybe you put a little bit of crazy glue and put that on there. But generally, I do not fix everything, only a few things, and I use YouTube to help me figure out what I can do to fix it.
Do you use any other sources besides YouTube to learn how to repair items? And do you have any formal repair training for electronics or appliances?
I really have none. I don't like to touch anything that's electrical is a little dangerous, I think, sometimes for me. So I just like to fix the minor stuff. And really, I think that YouTube is the only thing that I use. Occasionally, what I do is if you're not too sure how something works, and you don't have the owner's manual, you look up the owner's manual online. And that will give you another way of looking to see if the unit is working. I'll give you a quick example. I just purchased a espresso coffee machine that the Goodwill thought was broken. They thought, well, it's broken. So they sold it for $20. It was about a $400 value. I knew what was wrong with it. There's a lever that pushes up when the bag goes in, which enables a switch. It's a safety feature. I knew that. Okay. Therefore, I bought that for $20, knowing it wasn't broken. I tested it there. I just pulled the lever up. So that's what I'm talking about. Yes, they think it's broken. I knew it wasn't broken.
So beyond kind of developing that eye for value and maybe a little bit of repair work, what are some of the other crucial skills for an eBay seller to develop, and why are those important?
I tell people early on, you need to develop a process. I'm not a goal word. I don't like the goal word. I like a vision. So you need to have a vision for yourself, and you need to set this up daily, weekly, and monthly. You need to follow through. If you're going to do this full time, you have to take it seriously, and you have to say to yourself, okay, what are my steps that I'm going to do today? What am I going to do this week? What's my plans for the month? I want to build the vision, and I want to continue to work on that process every single day. So if it takes getting up at 6 a.m. every morning, and it takes, you got to do some listing, you got to do some of this, and then you go out and source. Hey, the sourcing part is fun. Hey, who doesn't like going to a garage sale, flea market, that kind of stuff? But it's all that little stuff behind the scenes that you have to do to improve yourself every single day.
And then why eBay over some of the other online marketplaces? What are the particular advantages of eBay for a reseller?
eBay is the big monster in the used field, the new field. Amazon is a different animal, but eBay is the player. Now, I have sold on other sites like Macari. I have not done Poshmark. There are other sites now that are doing auctions like Whatnot and all of these other places. But eBay, by far, for the value that you get, I think it's about $59 a month for a store. It is by far, they take care of everything for you. So I like to stay on that platform. Getting too many platforms can really kind of mess you up because you might be putting the same item on 4 or 5 platforms, and now you're having to manage these platforms. And if it sells on eBay, you got to take it down over here. And one thing you do not want to do on eBay is have an issue where you sell something on Macari, you don't take it down on eBay, and you sell it on eBay and you don't have it. That's a strike against you. So I pretty much concentrate strictly on eBay just because it's the global leader in everything that it does. They will ship nationwide. They will ship internationally for you. To me, it's flat out amazing. Whatever they charge, it's well worth it, and it's just my go-to, period.
We'll get to those eBay fees in just a second, but this is going to bring us to a section of our show that we call our Fan Blitz questions. These come from our YouTube community, so listeners, go find us on YouTube, youtube.com/upflip, join the community, and you can pose questions to future podcast guests. Okay, Mike, we're going to try and get through about 8 questions here in like 3 minutes. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'll go.
All right, here we go. Charlie Daniels is asking, do you have regular customers? How do you attract and maintain customers on eBay?
First off, you got to keep listing items. People who come to your store, they want to see that you're continually feeding your store. And if they start to see that you're an electronics guy, they're going to basically like subscribe to your store and they're going to be watching. So you got to constantly be putting stuff on your store.
Dario Xbrow is asking, how do you deal with returns?
Basically, I accept the return and move on. If you focus too much on the return, you're going to take away from your business. They happen. It's just you've got to deal with them and move on.
Matt W. would like to know, how many listings does it take to start gaining customer traction?
I'm going to say the simple thing, as many as you can, but you're going to need at least a couple hundred, 200-300 to get really, really some kind of traction. But as many as you can, just keep building the inventory.
Kathy O'Neill is asking, do you sell other people's handmade items?
No, unless I have found it in a thrift store, but I don't go to them specifically to do that.
Christy23 has asked, how much did you start with?
Basically, what I had in my wallet that day. That's dead serious. I mean, and I have a credit card, but that was it.
One more from Christy23. What's your biggest obstacle?
I think the biggest obstacle is continually sourcing and finding stuff. It's not so much an obstacle, but it's the process that I talk about. You have to keep doing that. It's your mainstay. So I'm always looking for sourcing.
Tabitha Tomorrow is asking, what type of items do you have the best track record of selling?
I am an electronics and a media guy in a way. I love my stereos. I love my old vintage amplifiers, CDs. I like vinyl records, you name it. All of that. That's probably my favorite.
One more Blitz question here. Can you tell us about your most bizarre business encounter?
I'll tell you it in the context real quick of what I found. The VHS market, new sealed old vintage movies, Ghostbusters, Raiders of the Lost Ark is very hot. Anyhow, I procured a sealed Raiders of the Lost Ark videotape, VHS. I put it up online on eBay for $4,500, $4,500 one night. In 10 minutes, it sold for full price, $4,500. But the most bizarre thing about that was a gentleman came in right after and he sent me a message. He said, "Hey, did you sell that VHS tape?" I said, "I sure did, $4,500. He said, "If it falls through, I'll give you $15,000. So to me, it was like, did I undersell it? I don't know. But I got that VHS tape for free.
Incredible. That is going to do it for our Fan Blitz questions. Again, those come from our YouTube community. Go over to YouTube, find Upflip, join the community, and post questions to future podcast guests. Mike, are there any features or tools on eBay that sellers should make sure they know about? And what are some best practices for using those effectively?
The new tool that they've just enacted, and I use it a lot, is the video feature. You never used to be able to put video in the pictures. Now you can do a video. Video for certain items works great, and there are not a lot of sellers who are taking advantage of this. Example, high-end amplifiers. You want to show it working. Take video of it with speakers attached, musical boxes, anything that has sound that you couldn't put in a picture, you can now with the video feature. It is by far the most amazing thing that eBay has done in the last 10 years, as far as I'm concerned.
When you're putting items up on eBay, do you use fixed prices or the auction system, and why?
Okay, most big resellers, and I consider myself a bigger reseller, are using the buy it now feature. It is really difficult to manage. I have 1,400 items up. So if I'm running 1,400 auctions, that's a difficult thing to manage. Now, there are times you want to use the auction. I do use the auction. What happens is most people think, okay, we're going to use the auction. The problem is if your item does not have enough interest, you will end up selling that item to the only bidder. You will be basically sniped at a low price if you have not set a reserve price at what you want. For example, you want to put up on an auction the item at the price that you want to sell it. So let's say it's $100. Then you start the auction at $100. You don't start the auction at $5 thinking, oh, I'm going to get hundreds of people bidding. No, if you take a look at a lot of eBay sales, you'll see a $5 sold with one bid. That's because they didn't set their price high enough. So auctions, there's a spot for them, but it's always a buy it now price.
How much does eBay charge per purchase, and what other fees and costs should somebody be planning for as they enter the eBay seller world?
eBay runs about 16%. Now, I use a simple formula in my head. I basically use 25%. It's just a built-in mechanism for adjusting the price of the item. So if an item, I know I can sell it for 100, I know I'm going to say eBay is going to take $25. So I'm left with 75. Now, how much did I pay for it? Okay, I paid 25. I'm left with 50. You want to set your mind that way so that you can kind of understand, but they take about 16%. Now, here's the key. Here's where a lot of people make their mistakes. The other thing you have to worry about besides fees are pretty straightforward, and some categories are less. Some categories can be 10%, but generally speaking, about 16%. Where people make their biggest mistake is not knowing shipping. That is the number one issue that I see with a lot of new sellers is they don't understand how to price their item for shipping and what to use for shipping, what service from the post office to UPS to FedEx. So that's where they generally make their mistake. So that is one thing you got to really, really be good at it. And it takes time. That's going to take some time.
What do you do to drive traffic to your eBay store, or is it more reliant on the items that you have listed?
It's hard to drive it to your store, but the more that you list and the more that you sell, believe it or not, it's their algorithm. It does kind of fish towards you, and you start to build up followings. I think I have about 2,000 people who follow my store. So I will tell you something. Overseas, especially China right now, China is hot for a lot of items. A lot of items are being sold to what we call jobbers around here. There's some in Portland, Oregon. There's some in LA. I have sold a lot of, for example, old vintage Coleman lanterns that are being shipped from here to China. They're actually buying them here and then sending them back. So that's an interesting dynamic that's going on right now too.
Earlier, you mentioned the new video feature on eBay. What are some of those must-have components of a great product listing? And is there anything that someone should be doing within the listing to increase that item's chance of selling?
One thing you got to have, and you got to have quality pictures, okay? There are a lot of apps that will take the background out. I don't have one. I drew a blank. So when you're taking pictures like shoes, for example, it'll make the background white and the shoes will stand out. But the key here is you must take quality photos. Quality photos, and that first picture, which we call the thumbnail, because it's going to show up in the listing, needs to really stand out. It doesn't need to be far away. It kind of needs to be a really top-notch crop in picture, and you've really got to have quality photos. Some people have booths, which are these white booths where you can put the item in. I do not do that. I have a big granite countertop that I use, and I just put the items on top of my granite countertop, and that's what I use as my base. The other thing that you need to really start to learn is to get the item description as, just like this interview, we want to be short and concise. Our description needs to be right to the point, not too long. All needs to be, everything about that item that you can talk about needs to be in there, but it needs to be short and concise. And the item descriptions, now eBay requires a lot of that. There's little drop-down menus. You need to fill out as many that are pertinent to you and get the item in the proper category. Do not get your item. If you're selling a book, don't put the book in the DVD category. Make sure it's in the proper category.
Let's say that someone's getting a decent amount of traffic to their listings, but they're not actually making the sales. What might be the problem, and what can they do to fix it?
I'll say 90% of the time it's pricing. You're not competitive enough on the pricing, and that's probably what's hurting you the most. And so you've got to go back into some of your listings, and you really get you really get kind of one shot at it in a way, because sometimes we forget about it. I got 1,400 items. I do a check every couple of weeks, and I go down and I look to see if my item, what's going on with my item? Is there something that needs to be adjusted? And usually it's price. Maybe one or two people have come in and dropped down below you, and that's preventing you from getting the sale. And also, you just need to constantly keep listing, and things will start to flow in. Believe it or not, I did $300,000 last year. My average number of sales per day, only 8 on eBay. But I have a high ASP, a high average selling price.
Yeah, that really does make a lot of sense. You've got a popular YouTube channel, Golden State Picker on YouTube. It's very popular. And how has that helped you grow your business? Are you finding a certain type of video that gets the most views and engagement?
Yeah, I always find it, my channel, I'm trying, just like here, I'm trying to inspire people. I am trying to give back. So I want to do some how-tos. I like to show people what we found. That's always exciting. People like to see that. But I like to explain to them how I found it, why I picked it up, and what it's going to sell for. So a lot of these how-to, a lot of inspirational videos that I'm trying to do. I want to get people inspired. The hardest thing in life, I think, is to be continually inspired. You need that every day. You need some reinforcement. So that's what my channel is trying to do.
What other social media channels might you recommend for a reseller? What do you use, and what type of content are you posting on each?
Well, Instagram is obviously, I think, probably the second best for me. I love Instagram. It gives me some quick shorts. I can do reels. I can do something that I sold quickly. I can put that up very fast and let people see that, and I can drive them to my YouTube channel. I think Facebook is good. I'm not a big Facebooker personally for myself. Some of the other things that I think people need to do when it comes to Facebook, your bigger items, some of those you can cross-post onto eBay and also onto Facebook Marketplace for a local pickup. You can also source on Facebook Marketplace. That's a great place sometimes to find where garage sales are, where estate sales are. I also like the app. I don't know if you have it in your area. It's called Nextdoor. It's usually neighborhood oriented, and I have it here in California. And it's where people post stuff. They post their garage sales. They also post stuff that they're selling. So I'm using all of these apps together to continually do things and find things. It's those are basically my three main ones I use.
Now, if somebody listens to this interview, hears about your success, and they say, I want to go be a reseller, what should they do from the beginning to scale to a six-figure revenue, besides obviously going and watching all of the Golden State Picker YouTube videos?
I think you need to first is set yourself up so that you're organized. It is important. You are going to be dealing with potentially thousands of items. If I had to go back and do it all over again, I would make sure I was a little bit more organized on the storage side. Okay. If I had to tell my wife to go find something in this particular area, I think she'd probably struggle. So that would be number one. And like I said, number two, you got to figure out how to treat this. We've all had jobs. So I don't want to say this is a job because I'm having an absolute blast doing this. I mean, this is just so much fun, but you have to be able to get up at 6 a.m. You have to be able to do the same thing over and over and repeat yourself and build the business. The only way you're going to build your business is to continue with your process. Have that long-term vision. You might not get to it for 1 or 2 years. It took me a good 2 years to really feel comfortable. And the last 2 have been really, really strong. Now, I have a business background, and so I understand, how to do a business part, but you just got to keep grinding and keep trying to build for your vision.
What's the best way to connect and network with other resellers, and how does that kind of networking help to grow your business?
The number one thing will cost you $10. It's called a business card, 500 of them on Vistaprint. Doesn't matter where you get them. You're going to take that business card and you're going to just fill it out and make it say your name and your phone number and your email. And you're not going to say you're a reseller, but you're just going to say, I buy these things, and put down the things you like to buy. You go to a garage sale, hand it out to the person at the garage sale. You see another picker, hand it out to another picker. Say, hey, my name's such and such. Here's my card. I like to buy things because a lot of pickers don't like to buy what you buy, and they may turn you on to stuff. Going back to exactly what I did, I've talked to so many people. I handed out my business card about a month ago. I picked up, get this, 4 Geiger counters for $25 each. I just sold 2 of them each for $425. That business card, handing it out to that gentleman who I happened to meet, turned into money. That is the number one thing you need, is to network. You have to network to grow your business. You will not grow it without networking and getting some help.
In the retail industry, between the pandemic, supply chain issues, rising costs, they've been having a rough couple of years. How has that and some of those items impacted your business the most, and why?
Well, during the pandemic, I did fantastic because everybody was at home buying everything offline. And then the great thing about that was we were all picking stuff up off of Nextdoor and Facebook. Everybody was cleaning their house. I was growing during the pandemic. Now the issue isn't so much the pandemic or anything. It's inflation. In the time we're at now, the cost of stuff is rising. And where the cost is rising is it goes back to shipping. The post office, UPS and FedEx are raising rates. The post office now is raising rates twice a year. So if it goes back to me telling you about, hey, the shipping has to be spot on. You have to be able to make those adjustments and know that. That is, if you're selling an item for $10 and you're losing, and you had it set for $4 shipping and now it's $5 shipping, you're losing $1. So you have to be on your P's and Q's when it comes to the shipping. And also, hey, prices are going up. A lot of these thrift stores and stuff think that they have inflation, so they're raising it up, all their prices due to the cost of employees, etc. So that's a big challenge right now.
Since you mentioned shipping, I want to ask you about your shipping process. Like, do you package and ship your sold items, or do you use a service for that? And what advice do you have for controlling shipping costs, even as they, rapidly change?
I'm in a big city, so I can't talk to people who are more in the rural areas, but I'm in a big city and I have a shopping center near me. And I mean, I can find every box I need. So I'm a big box recycler. I do buy some boxes. I buy most of them on Amazon. I don't use Uline, but there are places that you can buy them. I buy, record albums, DVD boxes, those kind of things. But all my other boxes I source from shopping centers and the such. The bubble wrap, you can again find that pretty reasonable. This is not a big capital intensive business. That's what I love about it. You can get the boxes almost for free. The shipping supplies aren't much. So it's just great. That's what's so exciting about it, is it doesn't cost you a lot of money to start this type of a business.
What systems or software are you using to manage your inventory and finances? Can you just kind of talk us through your system and why it works well for an eBay-based business?
Yeah, it's a pretty simple structure. There are some pieces of software out there that you can buy that are pretty darn good. I don't use that. I use a simple Excel spreadsheet of sales and versus cost and that kind of thing. And I use QuickBooks. I'm lucky. My brother-in-law is my CPA. So we have a setup for that. But basically, it's pretty simple. What goes in, what goes out on a spreadsheet, what you paid for it, maybe what you sold for it. The key there is if you can keep up on it. Remember, I said I sell 8 items a day. That doesn't take a lot of time to enter that what you sold that item for in your spreadsheet once you have it set up. Like I said, there are some softwares out there, but I just use a simple Excel spreadsheet.
What are some current reselling trends or market shifts that business owners should be aware of? Have you changed anything in response to these trends?
Trends in reselling, it's all over the place. Sometimes clothing's hot, sometimes something else is hot, but they're all pretty consistent in there. The trend is knowing how to keep your shipping expenses on par. You don't want to. You can really lose quickly by not having something priced correctly. So you really have to be on P's and Q's there. With that pricing going up continually, that's where I'm putting all my focus on right now, is to make sure that my shipping is spot on. If you watch some of my channel on the Golden State Picker, you always hear me talking about, I like to make money on shipping. It's not making money, but it's covering my costs. I have bubble wrap. I have all this other stuff. So if I'm shipping, if something costs me $20 to ship and I'm selling it for $20, am I making money? Not really. I got to package it. That's time. I also got supplies. So I might want to make $25 on that. So I'm making $5 and it all starts to add up and you're ahead of the game then on shipping.
What is the number one piece of advice that you'd give to someone who's starting a reselling business?
This is simple. This has always been my slogan. Don't buy just to buy. If you're in the store and it's slow and you're not finding anything, if you're at garage sales and stuff, there's this urge to say that I haven't gotten anything. Well, sometimes you don't buy anything that day, and that's the best thing that could happen that day. So you don't want to buy just to buy. Focus on finding items that will flip and sell quickly, sell for good profit. So just keep that in mind. I've had so many people tell me, Mike, it works. What I do is when I walk into a store, my mind tells me, the first thing I say to myself is, don't buy just to buy. I say it in my mind almost every time I walk into a store.
If you could pick one thing that people will take away from this interview, what would it be?
I want people to feel like, hey, that anybody can do this. Anybody. You hear that all the time. But this is one area where right now in the country, we've got a lot of costs. People are struggling to make money and struggling to keep up because of inflation. This is an excellent way to basically supplement your income. Hey, I'm using it for my retirement. And I have a lot of people on my channel who are older and they're saying the same thing. They're on a fixed income and they're trying to find a way to make $500, $1,000 more a month. What a great way to do it. That is what reselling is all about. It doesn't cost a lot. And if you're just good at it and follow certain steps, you're going to make some good money. So I just want to say, hey, everybody, you can do this. If I can, you can.
What's your favorite business book and why?
Yeah, this is a simple one. This one changed my life. Atomic Habits by James Clear. I wish the one thing I did when I was younger was read more. I think I'd be in a different place even today. And I picked up James Clear's Atomic Habits. It basically gave me this vision that I was looking for about habits. And you've heard me talk about it, the habit of waking up at maybe 6 a.m. good, solid habits, not bad habits. And that book put me back on the track. 4 years later, this is where I am.
Mike, where can people learn more about you and the work that you're doing?
Hey, you can catch me on my YouTube channel at Golden State Picker on YouTube, and it's Golden State Picker Mike Instagram. Take a look at those two spots and you can find me.
And listeners, make sure you head over to the Upflip blog if you're looking for more advice on how to start a business and scale it to 7 figures. There are also tons of helpful knowledge resources in the Upflip hub. Links to both in the resources section below. Mike Wilson, the Golden State Picker. Thanks so much for joining us on the show.
You're welcome, Alex. It was fun.